This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 Nightcrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
Welcome to Building Resilience, Team Sustainability. We're going to talk a lot about continuity best practices through process and documentation.
Hello. So, the unthinkable has actually happened. There's been a change of leadership within your team, and unfortunately, it's just the worst possible timing. Maybe it's a deadline for a team registration payment, or it's week one and you still have parts that are on order and need to be paid for, or you're on the bus. Your team is on the airplane that's on the bus, you're going to an event, or you're going to championships. Who picks up the pieces to keep everything going on your team, and where do you even start with all of this?
So preparing for the worst case scenario doesn't mean it will happen. We want to give that little disclaimer in the beginning. And also a reminder, all of this is available for you to be able to click through at your own pace later. We provide the entire PowerPoint as well as a document that you can work with your team for. So don't worry about screenshotting every single slide because we are going to hand it all over to you. But change is inevitable, right? Unexpected things happen every day. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be small things, but you don't want to lose all of this valuable work that you've been working on.
All of these emojis, all of these emotions, I have lived every single one of these experiences. And truth be told, the first time I heard a lot of this information, it was during the pandemic. And by the end of the presentation, my head was just filled with so much that I had to actually log out of this meeting and go and truly think about it.
So what makes us the people that maybe you want to listen to? So my name is Elise Cronin-Hurley, and I'm from Florida. And I started, like many do in FIRST. My son got involved in 2011, and I was asked to mentor the team. And my area of expertise was website graphics, that sort of thing. I also had some event planning experience, a good amount of event planning experience at this point too. Later on in the team, eventually I ended up running for the team for 4 years. After 2019, I had to take a break for family reasons. This is very applicable to me and very near and dear to my heart. Our team experienced its third transition into a new mentor. So we've experienced this several times. We've now had 5 team leads for Exploding Bacon in 21 years. And so we've had a good amount of experience with what that process looks through like and taking it smoothly. Now I work more on the event side and love giving these presentations on team sustainability.
Hi, I'm Laurie Shimizu. I have been a FIRST volunteer since about 2005, 2006. I have primarily been on the event organization side of things, but here in Minnesota, I also serve as a FIRST senior mentor. And FIRST senior mentors, we are scattered across the country, and we are resources to you and your teams in every single area. I am now retired as a team mentor, and I spend most of my time actually serving as the FIRST Global Volunteer Coordinator. So hopefully I'll see a lot of you at events and at the championship event. So all of the information that we are going to be talking about, this really is a huge information benefit to essentially everybody that you and your team come in contact with, your mentors, your students, your parents, your volunteers, team leadership, your alumni, sponsors, everybody that you interact with in your school and your community. All of this information benefits all of the stakeholders, no matter what role they play on your team or in your community. And no matter what your concerns are, hopefully we are providing a resource to you that will get you started. So maybe you're a new team, or you're looking at a leadership transition, or maybe you're actually recovering from a very difficult situation. We are going to provide a lot of tips and tools to you as we work our way through all of the different pieces of our presentation.
All right, so the text alerts are coming in. We're getting back to the what our state is. We're in a panic, right? But we don't have to be, because you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. And being prepared can make sure that you can handle those catastrophes or small matters, those daily small matters, more smoothly and enjoy more of the time on your team. So, what do you need to make this work? We're going to break this down into 4 different areas as far as the process go. We're going to talk about your team situational awareness, then go into like people in the adoption of the process, then pulling all together with the inventories, and then how to take all of that and build onto that documentation and some good accountability in your team. Reminder throughout this process as you're thinking through this, you are no longer available. So every aspect that you're thinking about, remember, your team can't ask you questions. So everything you have has to be in that documentation so they are better prepared. So on to situational awareness, understanding what your current information is. Would you describe your leadership as one leader who has everything in their head, that is invaluable? If you lost that person, you wouldn't know what to do next, what the next step is. They're amazing, they're great, but it's all in their head. You don't have a good documentation? Or would you describe yourself as a really good group of skillfully sailing mentors who are taking things as they go and building a little bit here and there, but maybe not have great documentation? Who knows? Are you completely flying by the seat of your pants, or some sort of these? No matter where you are, these steps can help you build out into better next steps. Knowing what you know versus having no idea what you don't know, from the known knowns to the unknowns. Hopefully we're going to help bring some of this together for you. There's lots of things you probably already know, like maybe you already have things like a team guide, and this is a known, or rules that you have to work with in your school. Those are things that are known knowns. Or maybe you have a list of things that you just don't know what the next step is. You know that you kind of need to do something with it, but you're not sure what to do with. Then there's those things you don't even want to think about. You just leave them back here. I'm not even going to, I choose not to even think about the worst case scenario, right? Or things I can't control, or even bias. Those are known unknowns. And then unknown unknowns, hopefully we're going to even throw some of those at you, hopefully even a good amount of those, so that because those are those things like, oh, I never thought of that. And so hopefully we can give you some good places to work with.
So hopefully one of the known knowns is that you are aware that your first robotics team has a first account and a first dashboard. And that is truly the way that you and your team communicate with FIRST itself. A lot of information is in this first dashboard. It's where, if you have grants or donations, it's where your team leads, your lead mentors or lead coaches 1 and 2, plus a team administrator. If your team uses this role, they are the ones who have access to this dashboard, and they are the ones who are actively entering information and keeping it as updated as possible. The question remains, however, maybe you were that lead coach 1, and you are the primary person that FIRST has been in communication with. That can be of issue, especially if you then lose access to that team dashboard. So what do? Before you panic, every area of our country, and including here in what we call FRC Northland, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, reach out to your regional director. Here in Minnesota, it's Nicole Shassow, and Nicole is going to work with you and your team to make sure that you have continued access to your FIRST dashboard. It's also the primary way now through your FIRST accounts that you're getting into training portals, doing data privacy, all of those requirements now that FIRST has put into place for teams. And this is the way that you and your team keep updated with all of that information. Ooh, now we're getting into it, the foundation of planning. This is what we like to call the people in your neighborhood. Who are the people that you are going to be working with, and how are we going to get through to adopting all of these different guidelines and processes? So truly understand where you are starting from. It could be your team's lead coach is no longer available to you or in your team. So who's going to be that person who's going to step in? You need to think through who else is there? Is it a parent? Is it a volunteer? Is it someone within your community or within your school? We're going to think through what information does this person have or not have access to right now. And so then where do they begin? Overall, what we're trying to come to is, have you set up your team to succeed, even though you personally may not be there to help them through all of these steps? And I want to emphasize too, it's always important, no matter who you are or where you are in this process, leave all those communication pathways open. Anyone who comes in after you is going to need to contact someone who knows your team, is associated with your team, whether it's a school, booster club, a nonprofit. You're going to have to hand off this information. And it also could be that in some situations, it may be helpful to know additional family members that you can reach out to. So many different kinds of situations that you may find yourself in. Keep everything open, and you've already guaranteed a bit more success. So the people. Oh, I love this part. Where can you really lean in? Start by identifying probably the easy folks. Who are your team leadership? Should they be involved? To what extent should they be involved? So it's your team leads, lead mentors, maybe it's a treasurer of finance, all the different area leads on your team. And consider those who may have access right now to information, or those that have potential to have access to additional information. The potential really is an interesting group, because those are people who you can really see going into the future, who's going to be involved in those key team decisions over the next 3 years. And then, of course, who has access to team assets. And if your team access points are really very small, we're going to encourage you to build that out in a very graduated and deliberate way. Also think about who are your peers in the FIRST community, and maybe even there are professionals that you lean on for help and direction. So think through the relationships that you have built throughout the FIRST community, who is even local to you in your community and professional services. And what immediately comes to mind, of course, it might be a trusted banker, or a legal counsel, or a person who's going to help you with perhaps your tax returns. And
Or
of
your
course,
website.
Now, your website. Yes, indeed. Of course. And of course, really do think about who your regional directors and your senior mentors are, because they are resources to you, and they really do want to have contact with you.
All right, so some tips for leadership. None of us expected to be the jack of all trades that we have had to become, right? As team leaders, all of a sudden you're thrown into all these crazy things with data protection policies, and you have to be aware of nutrition and food allergies, and how to best write recommendation letters. And maybe you're going in all sorts of different directions that you never expected. Think about your own personal development. This is a wonderful opportunity. I never expected to be exposed to all of the things that I have had the opportunity, the directions I've had the opportunity for growth, right? This is a great opportunity for you to develop some of your leadership skills, and understand that all of your team members have those same strengths and challenges, right? We are all limited human beings, but together we make up a really great whole. So learn about the people on your team, assume positive intent. almost every time somebody comes at you, no matter what kind of energy they come at you with, they're coming at you with the intent to help. It doesn't look the same for everyone, and sometimes it can rub us the wrong way, right? If we're not used to people coming at us with a lot of energy, and very excited about stuff, that can be a barrier for us to accept their help. Sometimes they can be very quiet and they're trying to be very unassuming, and they're getting kind of, you're not seeing them very well. So assume that everybody on your team really does want to help you and help the team move forward. Um, Great mindset for all information coming in. Always be looking for, be training a second or looking for that person if you don't have that person right now. Continuing education, just continuing education, continuing education. Keep learning more. I highly recommend about trust and accountability. It just is such a fabulous foundation for any team that you are working with. So bringing all of your people together now, you have your people, you found your people, you know who you're including in this process. Do you have buy-in? It may or may not be, your team may or may not be ready to do this. If they are ready, that's great. Let's get going, right? But if they're not ready right now, doesn't mean just turn off this video and move on. Because there's still things that you can get started with. The stronger foundation you have at any point that you start this, the better. There are little steps that you can take. But having a team come together and decide on this will give you better structure and documentation, creating better expectation and boundaries, and a better chance for you all to succeed together. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is, okay, but there's a lot of resistance to the change of changing the culture on our team or changing the ideas about how we do things. There's just a lot of resistance, right? People don't like change. And I struggled with that one myself. What can I tell people to do? And in my research, I came across this really great article. It's through the Harvard Business School. The link is in the bottom of this slide. So when you get access to these slides, you can go and click on the full article, but these are the bullet points. And I think there's just some really great ideas in here about actual actionable steps that you can take to start moving through those challenges that you're experiencing. And I hope you find some good ones on here. I really love this whole article.
So, this is a moment where you can just take a deep breath and think about it. Where are you right now? Are you really planning for efficiency or effectiveness? And by that, we mean efficiency. You know, it's could very well be the short term. You're in the middle of the 6-week, 7-week build. You're heading to a competition. You need a short term, I won't call it a band-aid, but a band-aid to get you through to the end of the competition season. Or are you thinking about this now, but you're really looking at this long term? And by long term, you're 6 months and beyond. This is more of oh, it's the off season. We can really sit down and start working through a lot of these issues and checklists together. But keep in mind that sometimes you just got to get through in the short term, and that is absolutely okay. But make sure you circle back so that you're then continuing to plan for the future.
All right, so now we're going to get into the nitty gritty, the pulling it together. And this is the point where Laurie screamed into a pillow. So please do not feel overwhelmed by this.
Too true, Elise.
Please don't feel overwhelmed by all of this. This is a moment by or a step-by-step process. You do not have to do it all together in one season. You shouldn't. You shouldn't do it in a weekend. You shouldn't do it in one season. This is a growth kind of thing. But there is a lot that we want to cover to give you guys some good starting places. We want to help make sure that we covered a lot of these areas. So why are we doing this? Because it is a lot of that critical information, right? Those things you don't want to be panicking during build season. Where's your logo for your shirt? Who all has keys to get into your build space? Did we collect all of those from the last mentors that left? Do we have good documentation on that? Where's that password? We want to make sure that we have the things that we're looking for easily accessible so things keep moving smoothly. And what are your current pain points? You know what is on your mind the most right now. This is the thing that is driving me the most crazy right at this moment. I'm sure every one of you can close your eyes and think of that, right? So that's where you might want to start, though. That's might be the area you need the most help with, might be the best place to start in all these. We are not going to go in a specific order for these things, more of just this is the order we came up with these things. This is no order to tackle this, all right? But it is, like we said, a build over time. And as you build this out, it'll give you that place to go, oh, we need to write that down. Where do we put that? This is where you put that, right? All right. So what is the process? We're going to gather the information. Some we have, some we might need to build out. We're going to build that documentation, and then we're going to make sure we review it annually so it stays relevant to the team. That is really the critical part of this. It needs to stay relevant to the team. This is a living document. So you're going to gather, build, and review annually.
Of course, where you're going to start is you're going to brainstorm. You got to really start one at a time thinking through all of these different categories and people and lists. Oh my gosh, I don't know about you, but I love a good list. And a lot of that is having, yes, pen and paper, or maybe it's a whiteboard, maybe it's post-it notes, but jotting down those ideas that come to you when you're perhaps even thinking about something else. But overall, you also want to think about, do we want to set aside time as a team, as a group, to really think about some of these things together? And you might want a facilitator to help you get through a lot of the thinking times. But overall, you just want to make it possible for people to really share their ideas and their experiences and their inputs. And you want to keep shared documents of all of these things that you're going to come up with. So gather it all up. You have resources that are available to you today. You may have websites, you may have social media, you may have shared online documents, but probably somewhere you have things like your teams and your organization's mission and vision. You have goals, budgets. Oh, budgets are really, really important, both, past years and what is happening this year, that you're recording the income, your grants, your sponsorships, and of course the expenses with robot parts, travel, things like that. You may also have a section that you've put aside. You may have a team handbook, fabulous place to start. And there may be additional information in there about the rules and the guidelines and maybe restrictions that your school or community organization have put into place. There may be a school activities director or a principal that you want to have contact with to make sure that you have updated information. There also may be code of conduct guidelines from your school district, from your community nonprofit, anyone that you're working with that may also have some additional guidelines for you to start with. If you don't have an organizational chart, today is a great day to start putting that together. Again, that helps you understand how we're all connected to each other in that circle of information. It also gives you some insight into accessibility, who needs what information when. And again, the biggest brainstorm is going to be additional team resources and references. And I will guarantee you'll start a list today and you'll come back to it in 3 months and 6 months, and you'll continue to add to those resources and references because there's always that one more that you didn't think about initially. So the list of 6. What inventories do you have and what do you need? You have your people and your contacts. You have equipment. Maybe you have a router in your team space. Finances, fundraising, your online accounts. And those are the things that are internal to your team, such as maybe online banking and things like that. Then you also have the outward to the rest of the world, your media, your website, your social media presence. And of course, the big list that a lot of us end up with as we head to competition: travel, your competition needs, and of course, I hope you've packed your robot. So on those people and contact lists, make sure that you know really who those team stakeholders are, and that this list is accessible. If your lead coach one, two, you go down the list and it's like, okay, I'm down to number five. I know that I can call this person who can then connect me to the resource that I need at that time. And you may have an order of contact. It's okay to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no problem having an emergency contact. I would caution, however, in this age of data privacy, be cognizant of the first data privacy. I'll put in a small little promotion. There is a 15-minute training that everybody in FIRST can now take, and I do recommend it because it does give you some suggestions on how to handle sensitive personal information. And among all of these contacts, it's your school contacts, community contacts, the FIRST contacts in your area, sponsors, partners, vendors. Who are you purchasing those amazing t-shirts for when you go to competition? Machine shops, facilities at your workspace, your build space, community leaders. The list truly, these are just examples, and I know that all of you are going to come up with many more than we list here this evening.
Sorry, I went one too
Did you skip one?
far, I think. Yep, I did. There we go.
Okay, one more for me, and then I pass it back over to Elise. Okay, so make sure you have a list of team roles, if nothing else. Who are the people on your team, the active mentors, coaches, the active students? Really do create an organization chart, because that also helps you look at who do I need to contact when. And my favorite, since I spend a lot of time doing this, is what is the role, especially that you want your student leads, your students, and your mentors to fill? What are those role titles, a description? What do they actually do? What are the responsibilities for this role? If there are any skill sets that are helpful to have as perhaps a prerequisite. And of course, the one thing that you get asked all the time, what's my time commitment here? How much time am I giving you? And a lot of people would like to know, oh, it's this amount of time or it's that amount of time. Or maybe it's something even in between, but make sure that you include that when you start to write those role descriptions. It's incredibly useful when you then have to look for recruiting new people to your team.
All right, so moving on to our next topic. After people is equipment. And this is anything physical that you have, right? This could be anything from the building that you work in to the screwdrivers that you have a list of, right? So it's all that physical equipment. Are there maintenance schedules or repairs that need to be documented? Who has the keys and access to the places that need to be unlocked? Keeping that list. The any kind of inventory of parts that you have. This can be especially useful during build season, rather than sitting there and going, oh, this is all the stuff we need for the robot. Oh, but we don't have enough money. Making good decisions about what you already have. Oh, but we could pull this off of last year's robot, or oh, we had an extra one of those left over from last year. That can help us pare down that list quicker, right? And react faster. And so these are the things that you can do now before build season, so that it can keep things moving faster. Or if you're already in build season because you're watching this a little bit later, maybe it's an idea for next year. And don't worry about getting every screwdriver and drill bit at this point. But in the off season, it could be one of those things that you add to the list of what can be done today, kind of list that you keep in your build space. Ooh, we need to continue that work on inventorying the things that we have in our build space. That can be one of those ongoing things of, ooh, there's something somebody can work on today, right? Also, computers. I know so many of us have a good number of computers, and one of those things you want to include on that list of those computers is which ones actually work for what. Because you might have 6 laptops and none of them can run CAD, or one of them can run CAD. Understanding what you have that can actually work well for what you need to do, and what is needed most next. When somebody comes into your build space and they want to actually give you something physical, give you an in-kind donation versus money for something, if you said, okay, what do you need most right now? you might try to come up with something off the top of your head and later go, oh, but what we really needed was, if you have that now and somebody asks you, you are ready to get that next most important thing, right? Finances. Oh, this was one of the things that was most challenging for me. I will say, as a team lead, it was not something I wanted to have to be involved in. We do have a treasurer and such, but a team lead still has all the financial responsibility for the organization, right? I had to learn and even though I run my own business, still, I don't run a nonprofit for my business. That is not the area, correct? And what is your specific process for accounts receivable um and spending? See, not even really great with all of the words. But you don't have to be. What you need to do is you need to understand what the critical processes are, who you turn in the information to, when does it need to be turned into, what needs to be turned in, um, what is tax deductible, what's not. Everything's different in different states. So needing to understand what that is, how that applies to your team specifically. Do you work with a bookkeeper or accountant? Does this stuff get entered into a spreadsheet for your team, or do you just hand everything off to somebody? And how much of that information is transparent for your team? This is a big part of accountability, is if your team understands currently where they are, if someone can come up and say, how much money do we have right now and how much do we need to meet our budget? Uh, Anybody should be able to ask that at any point, because these are the people who can help you make sure you raise the money too. You need a good, strong group of people to be able to get out there and raise money and ask your community. If unless you are solely funded by a company, which I know also happens, but most of us are looking for donations from everyone, right? So understanding what you need and when you need it now. Also, I will say something that's not on here is, are you saving for the future? We had a line item on our budget that was for saving for the future. And over time, we built a good savings. So that's another thing you really need to consider on what your budget looks like. Um,
You
all
also
the
do need you need to think about too, Elise, is there may well be tax returns that are due for your organization for your 501(c)(3), and we mentioned earlier that maybe having an accountant to help you with some of that or to stay on the deadlines. In certain states, Minnesota being one, you have to do multiple filings, including with the state attorney general and the state secretary of state. And these may not be. I had to learn this too. So these are things that you will need to perhaps think about or reach out to some of those community professionals to help you with.
And absolutely have them help you document it. So the next person coming in doesn't have to go on an Easter egg hunt for what all the financial things are. Having the people who are in the current roles helping
Hmm.
document these things as they go through things, making those notes of, oh, today's meeting I did this and this and this. On my off time today I did this and this and this. Can really help to make it smoother because they're already doing the thing. They don't have to stop and think about it too much because they are in the process of doing the things. As things come up of questions, some of these questions that you don't know the answer to, as you get the answer, these may or may not be need to be documented in your documentation, understanding what does and doesn't. The difference between restricted and unrestricted money, right? How important is that, Laurie? Oh my gosh.
Very, very important to a first team. So yes, you do want to
Right.
make sure that when you have grants that are coming in, that you understand what the restrictions are in terms of applying and using that money.
You
Absolutely.
you want to make sure all that restricted money goes towards those registration costs, right?
Correct.
And you have the flexibility with that restricted money. So knowing what those things are and how to best maximize the use of all of it on your team. Another critical important thing on here, grants, for grant portals, having good documentation for that. So figure out what of this applies to your team and make sure you get it documented. I'm going to say it probably does not all need to be, but it might. Who knows? We took this from a real team, so this really could apply to you. Online accounts. So this is anything with a username and password. And again, it could include those grant portals, but it does include everything. Your first dashboard, your social media, all the stuff, your Andy Mark account, your Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, your Zoom account if you have one, everything that has a username and password. Who has that? Who has that information for your team? Uh, is there a master document that has all of the spreadsheet that has all of those in there that has the key people? This is one of those documents. It's not going to have a lot of accessibility, right? But it does need to have more than one person. So considering what does that accessibility look like for that information? But then there are some that you are constantly giving out, right? That more people need to have access to. And documenting which ones are paid and free accounts, if any of them are sponsored, when those deadlines come due. Is that sponsor still willing to keep doing that? And if they're not, you really need to make sure you also keep that in your budget, or if they are, whether or not they are, you need to keep that in your budget because you don't know at any point when somebody may decide that they're not going to continue to sponsor it, and your team, if that's an application your team needs, you need to account for it. So, how does all of that look for your team? These are some of the list again of things that may or may not apply to your team. We tried to brainstorm as many as we possibly could. We love brainstorming a good list, don't we, Laurie?
We love a good list.
Obviously, we've made so many. On the external side of that, we talked about the more internal side. This is the more external side. There's a little overlap here. Yes, there's still username and passwords, but this is more specifically that stuff that makes you look pretty and shares your message. And so that includes your branding, first branding, as well as your team branding. Where are those logos available? Do you have good copies of the logos? Do the students understand the branding guidelines for first? Do you know what all the colors are for everything? There's hexadecimal codes both for first branding as well as your team. Are those easily available to keep so your students and mentors can easily keep your image in line with what that looks like? So what's a hexadecimal code? Some people may say. I think more people are familiar with it these days, but it's that 6-digit color code that you can take from Microsoft to Google to Canva to just about anywhere you're going to be using those things, and it's going to be that absolute consistent color that defines your team or first consistently, so the look always stays good and sharp and represents you well, because you don't want that red to be a little too orange, or maybe you do, or that blue to be a little too reddish, or maybe you do. But you want it to be exactly the way that it's supposed to look every time. Lots of great creative applications out there now with Canva, DaVinci, Adobe, and Microsoft used to be like those more standard kind of things. Now we have more online options. Some of them are free account kind of things, but making sure your team knows where their assets are, because being able to use them year after year helps with that continuity and that sustainability, right? To be able to just pick up the thing and move it on to the next time. Canva's really great for that as long as you are keeping that together for your team. All your social medias, oh my gosh, please ensure that you have multiple admins on that, and that you keep that in your team handbook, who those admins are, and you're reviewing that annually. So as parents may come and go who are helping you to monitor those things, you're knowing that you need to add a new person that next year or something like that. Don't try to pick everything. Please do not try to do every social media platform unless you have a team of 100 people and they are so social media savvy and love this aspect of your team. Don't try to do everything. Try to focus on the things you'll do well. And keep in mind, Facebook is where your sponsors are and where your parents are and where some of your money may come from. So I know it may not seem relevant to your students, but it is a tremendous learning ground and can be a forward-facing aspect of your team. And also, you can very easily link Facebook and Instagram together. Look into Meta if you haven't already. The website and domain, some of that stuff may be parsed out into different areas, or it may all be together with a Wix account. Things work very differently in different formats, understanding where things are. You lose your URL, sometimes that can, if you've built up years of good search engine following on your website, you could lose it very quickly because it is of value at that point. Because it has history, you could lose it very quickly. So who's paying for it? When is it due? Making sure that all of these things are being taken care of when they're supposed to, they're documented. I'm not going to go into the rest because you have the idea. Everything else on your team, right? This kind of, you might feel like everything else on your team, the travel, the competing, the robot. I don't want it to feel like I just dumped all of this stuff into here, but this is a lot. It is a lot, but these are the kinds of things. The travel guide, oh my gosh, if you can have a travel guide that you use over and over again, oh, it'll save you so much time to not go, ooh, what were those important things we needed to talk about? What did we cover everything? Did we get everything we were supposed to go to our next event, right? Or outreach or whatever. Same with awards. What did last year's look like? Do we have good documentation on the things that we do throughout the years? What those look like? How did we set up the pit last year? I will tell you that this was one of those learning experiences for our team that as you have turnover in a team, which we did because we had 5 different team leads, sometimes we'd forget as we have different pit managers. How did the pit get set up? Well, having a good plan for that saves some time and maybe a little panic as you're trying to get it set up in the short amount of time that you have available to do so. Your robot documentation, year to year of having that, great resources for talking to sponsors about and just building out understanding over the years on your team about what worked well, what you were able to do well, and what was a struggle for you. And oh, why didn't we use that kind of manipulator? Ooh. Right. So those are all of those things.
So, as complete as we think our lists are, this is a moment to, again, catch your breath and think through what other lists would be more pertinent and relevant to you and your team. Again, right now in the short term or thinking ahead for your long-term sustainability. So, coming down to all of the results of all of this brainstorm, all of these lists, all of these late nights thinking through all of the things and all of this stuff, your documentation and your accountability, which also results in a lot more transparency and more shared responsibility.
All right. So we've collected all this information, right? That was a lot, but let's say, okay, this is time to start. Well, maybe you've collected some of this information. We're not asking you to collect all of it before you get to this point. You're starting to collect all this information. How do you actually make sure you get this documentation into usable formats? So thinking about those policies and procedures on how you're going to document, who's going to have access to it, where does it get stored, who has ownership of it, not just accessible to, but who has ownership of it so it doesn't get lost from year to year, and making sure that you are paying the bills if it's necessary, if it's paid space, right? Are there hard copies you want of some things? For example, we always keep a couple of team handbooks, hard copies in the build space. So we can grab it off the shelf and just point to something because you don't always have a computer accessible, although everybody has phones now, but still sometimes it's just nice to be able to pull that out and go, here, see, this was the thing. What did you need to know? This was, here it was. Creating, once you have those documents, and that could be team handbook, any of that financial stuff, any of this stuff that you're starting to pull together, creating a good index of folders in your drive will help you to keep things in order on where those things are supposed to go. I think it's really helpful to take your team guide and put the same structure in your drive so that it mirrors it, so people are trained to on where to find things and where to store things. So they know, oh, that was in this, we have a spot for it because it's in that, right? I best spot practices on actual documentation. I love table of contents. I love the drop-in feature of a table of contents when you use headings properly for it to automatically create it. I think it's incredibly useful for those long documents, and it keep in that little refresh so that it does the page numbers and everything. Oh my gosh, I just love a good table of contents. It could be helpful in some cases to include who created the document or the date it was last edited in the footer of a document in order to be aware of what version something is or who was last in charge of that. And visuals can really help communicate your ideas. So those are just some inside kind of things, but definitely teaching people how to find the information is one of those things that saves you time as a team lead. I cannot tell you how many times in the 4 seasons that I ran the team that was spent, like I would be on a roll of working with the kids on something, which is the gold moments for us, right? Those connections of working with the kids. And, oh, Miss Elise, do you know? Oh, Miss Elise, where can I? Oh, Miss Elise, what is? Teach them how to fish over time. Put it in a good location, whether it's your Slack or whatever, Discord, whatever online thing you're using, if you're using it, a link to your documentation, where your documentation is. And when they ask for questions on where to find it, tell them where, remind them where the link is. Don't tell them where in the document. Have them go look for it. The more they get used to going to look for the information, the less they will interrupt you later in going to find them. Teach them how to find the documents. You will know probably what the right documentation is for your organization. Some might need a charter or a club form. You might need a handbook based on what kind of organization you have. But even if you don't, that is the basic kind of thing for teams that I highly recommend for first teams, because this is where everything goes, right? This is where all of these things that we've been talking about have a place that they could go. It doesn't mean it has to go in that, but this is a place that you can put all of these things that we've talked about and that teams can access and use as a resource later. You might need bylaws. You'll know if you do or not. There's some really great examples of these things online. I will tell you the easiest way you can do it is, for example, do a search FRC team handbooks in Google. You will get lots of teams who are willing to share. It's one of the beautiful parts of our organization is that so many people are so willing to share what they've already experienced and how well they've already pulled these together. And honestly, I did this when we did our review of our team handbook to see if we were covering what we needed to cover and if there were things that would be helpful to add. And this is how I've gotten to this point of all of these lists of what we needed to include, because there were a lot of things that we were able to add to ours, and there were some things we kind of took out and put in different documents that were more appropriate. Chief Delphi has a bunch of threads on this. There's a link here to 1902's team handbook for you to take a look at as an example if you'd like. And the Compass Alliance has some examples on team organization resources as well. Another place to look for things. Then this brings us a little bit into, or brings us now to a leadership accountability. So all of this stuff is the things that we are responsible as leaders to manage well for our teams. We have a responsibility to make sure that we are being good stewards of the resources that we have, that we have good systems in place, that there is a successor, so things will move through responsibly later, or even temporarily, if something needs to be shared with another adult. This is part of our responsibility to be good stewards of our team and work together well to pull this all together and keep this moving forward. In addition to that, another very good stewardship aspect is having healthy reserves makes you stronger as an organization for the all the unexpected things that never happen, right? Economic downturns, or oh, what if we had a pandemic? Oh my gosh, those things never happen, right? That was right up there for us with zombie apocalypse on our list of things to happen. But we did have healthy reserves. We did have a surplus because we put it in our budget that this is a line there was a line item in our budget to strive to meet for our budget every year. We had reserves in our account, so we made it through the pandemic when some teams were not able to make it through because they did not have the funds to be able to keep going. So, what are your responsibilities? Having all of that information and making sure that as the leader of your team, that you can move through well as an organization. So, why are we doing all of this? Overall, there is purpose, right? There's the structure, and the documentation creates these great expectations and boundaries so that you can all succeed together because it's a lot smoother. People don't have to question things. They understand their whys. The open communication will create that transparency of the management and financial activities. People aren't wondering how much money we have. Should we be worried? Or why is our team lead freaking out? Everything's fine, because you don't know that everything's not fine, right? That transparency of where you currently are, it creates accountability, trust, and integrity in your organization as a group to work through things, but also to feel like they have a good level understanding of the playing field of what things actually look like. Having multiple trusted members, which we have repeated over and over again in this presentation, creates better productivity for you all, creates more effectiveness in what you're trying to communicate, and creates continuity in your organization for how things are supposed to work from year to year to year. Overall, that results in sustainability. Oh, look, there's an award for that. And less stress for you. So you get to enjoy the reason that we do this, right? The reason that we do this is because this is so much fun, especially when there's less stress.
Yeah, less stress and sleeping more at night. That is the bottom line, isn't it? So
Yeah.
this is a living document. I really think of this as it's an ongoing learning process, and you're going to learn new things and experience new things, and you get to, not that you have to, but you get to review all of this annually. And you will experience new circumstances. Things are going to come up. I can't tell you what those things are going to be necessarily, but to expect the unexpected. There will be maybe new events, or there'll be new stakeholders and new people that you'll be working with in your community, in your neighborhood. Maybe your budget has changed, in hopefully for the better, but sometimes not. But all of these things are ever changing, and you are developing resilience by putting all of this documentation together. And the best part of it is that you're going to start to see patterns develop. And by seeing the patterns develop, you can begin to build on that experience. And believe it or not, that's going to add flexibility into your day-to-day interactions, and then maybe your long-term interactions as well. If you review it annually, like everything else that we do, it allows you to keep modifying your plans, modify your guidelines, modify your handbook, and you're going to become more adaptable and then more successful in the long term. Along with lists, add this to your calendar. It just becomes an annual event, or maybe it's several activities and events that you're going to add to your team calendar, to your mentor calendar as you go through the year together, through the season together. And be kind to yourself. You have Laurie and Elise's permission to go at this as fast or as slowly as you wish to. But remember, be kind to yourself, and also be kind to the people that you will be working with.
So we've repeated a lot of this over and over again, so I'm not going to go through this word for word, only that I want to make sure that you have access to these reminders as you refer back to this presentation in the future, right? Um, Clear expectation and guidelines. This is great for onboarding students and parents over the years. By doing the review annually, you create an opportunity for buy-in for your students and parents every year. We always did it at the end of the year, not at the beginning of the year. This is incredibly overwhelming for new people. I'd never recommend doing this review with all your team at the beginning of the season because they don't have context for the experience of what all these things are useful for. And it can be overwhelming, but reviewing that at the end of the year, having those trusted mentors and who has accessibility and what things need to have restrictions and what things really need to be opened up because it's just not necessary to have restrictions on some things that you may have thought needed to. Um, you can take time to get the entire group on board. Again, like Laurie said, be patient with yourself and the others around you.
And of course, we always have reading recommendations. Lori and Elise have their own little book club that they've put together, and we've been sharing tips and tricks and resources as we've worked through now these last 4, 5, 6 years together. This is a list of some of the books that we have found helpful. 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna Wiest. Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Difficult Conversations, How to Discuss What Matters Most. Many editions of this, the authors that we've come back to are Douglas Stone, Bruce Patton, and Sheila Heen. Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And Elise's favorite of all time is The Six Types of Working Genius. And I can never pronounce this person's last name. Sorry, Elise, you'll have to do that for us. And then all of this is to expand your toolbox with just having a good new tool and knowledge and skill sets. Amazing. It just adds to your own experience as a first team lead, team coach, team mentor, team student.
So, as Laurie mentioned, that this is one of my favorites. This is Patrick Lencioni, and he is the author of The Six Types of the Working Genius. Also has several other books some of you might even be familiar with, but I will say this is one of my favorites, and I'm going to give a little bit of a plug for it. There is a link in the documentation workbook for a presentation that I did at the first mentor conference on this that you can actually utilize with your team if you were so taken by it as I did. And one of the things I really love about it is it breaks down the work process into these 6 phases of work and defines and is able through a lot of research to define that each one of us has 2 strengths and 2 challenges and 2 things we're on. Not that everybody doesn't have to do them all. I work for myself. I have to do all of these. Anytime a student works on a project, they're going to have to do all of this part of the process to get through from the beginning of what am I going to do to actually turning in a project, right? But we all have different strengths, and working together as a team creates this really great experience when we can identify what those strengths are. For example, I'm a wonder and enablement person. I love the brainstorming session part of aspect of the process. Some people are those enablement tenacity people and just want to get down to the actual business of getting the project working and getting it done. I am an enablement person. I do love starting a Google Doc. I am always one of the first people to say, yeah, I'll start a Google Doc on that. Those are your enablement people. They help you get the process moving. Understanding who the people are, what the strengths are, can better help you understand how to fit kids into the process to help them succeed better. And not only that, think about what a great advantage would be for a student to be able to go into the workforce and understand how they best fit into a team, how they can best fit into a team, and where they're going to be able to identify where their frustrations are. So when they hit those frustrations, they're not surprised by them, that they can actually keep moving through the process because they know, yeah, this is a frustration, but I know how to get through this, right? So yeah, that's my little plug for this one. Can talk about it forever. So all of this together, it's not meant to be a comprehensive guide. There's no way we can possibly do that for everyone because everybody's situation is different. But you are going to become the expert of your team through this process. Brainstorm with your team, have fun with the process, find those people who love doing that process for you. You're not likely going to be the first people to ever experience something on a team. We have thousands of team and decades of experience running these teams, right? There are people out there who have almost guaranteed experience this problem. And if they haven't, oh my gosh, you're about to become an expert on a new problem, right? So reach out to your first senior mentors and your first your regional directors.
Yep. Yep.
When you do have a problem, because again, they can help you find somebody, or they already know of the challenges and have great resources for you, great answers for you. Talk to other teams at events. Oh my gosh, this is definitely how I became more knowledgeable of the processes of what teams are going through, is because I love talking to teams and being curious about what they experience, what they do well. And coordinate this with your students. As much of this as you can do with your students, do it. There is a sustainability award. Isn't it great for students to be able to come out and talk to judges about, oh my gosh, we're working on this new project for documentation for our team. We're creating all these new activities for the sustainability of our team. The more you get them involved, how powerful is them to be able to talk about their experience of being involved in this? Having the steps to do this is going to release the burden of that stress, for you to be able to move smoothly through things. So now you have new tools. Yay!
And your emojis have changed. You've gone from, oh my gosh, where do I start, to now having this handy, nifty toolbox that you can come back to and add to and refer to as you work through
Enjoy.
all of this. Yes, please enjoy it. And thank you all so much for joining us. We do have all of this documentation online, and our contact information is listed here if for whatever reason you're having difficulty accessing any of the resources or the workbook or anything else, or maybe you're going to add a list. We're all about that. If you've come up with a resource and a list that we can add, please do reach out to us. And
We
thank
would
you.
be happy to give you credit for it. So thank you.
But please, does anyone have any questions?
Or have you all had to go run out the door and scream into a pillow, which is okay too.
I see Amanda has a question.
Kind of typical for me, sorry.
Oh, go for it.
I just want to thank you so much. This was pretty mind-blowing for me because it gives a structure and a name and a way to proceed to this sporadic group of things that I feel like myself and others on the team have been doing. So thank you. I feel very enabled now, although yes, overwhelmed. I'm also glad I'm not the only one who wakes up at night with thoughts about what to do about robotics. There is a question in here, and my question is this: you mentioned a handbook, and yes, our team has a handbook, but our handbook is very student focused. And I wasn't really sure if you were also referencing more like a coaching handbook or a mentor handbook as a part of that, or as a separate thing, or can you comment on that?
So I do know that our handbook in particular, I don't know about all handbooks, but I have reviewed a lot of them because, like I said, when I decided we needed to improve our handbook, I felt like I know we're missing things. I did a big search, and this was back, I want to say, in the probably mid 2010s, right? So it's been a while since I did this big search, but I started looking at other people's, and ours does cover a lot of different things. It covers expectations of parents. It covers the different roles of mentors, because we have young mentors that come in, right? We are near a university, so we have mentors that come in from other teams, and we like to keep the first alumni kind of in the fold a little bit, and we have a lot of young mentors. And so what role do they play? Is it a different it is a different level. The or first year mentors. What the different roles of the mentors are. We have a board of directors because we're a community team. So how does that play into our team? We also cover everything down to the little things, like our domain name is sponsored by one of the founding mentors of our team, who was a parent, and has continued to pay for it since then. But we document that little bit of information, because what if something happens to that? That's a powerful part of our ability to communicate about our team. We use it a lot. Our website's pretty extensive. To lose that would be a very big challenge. So every year we check in with him to make sure he's still going to sponsor it. So, but we might not have that information. We wouldn't have it as part of something when we review the handbook. Oh yeah, we need to check in with Eric, right? So having, and it's just all those things where something happens and we're like, ooh, put that in there. Ooh, put that. And we make a list of the things that we're going to address in our next review. We do not modify our team handbook on the fly throughout the year, right? We create the list of things we want to address when we make changes in the summer. We include the students in that process, because they're the ones who probably had the most questions about it, or the experience with the things that happen, but also the mentors, because we do cover some things with mentors. And you will have a link to ours, so you can see what we do cover or don't cover. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I was just going to say, Amanda, we are just getting started on this process of documenting things, and we have a separate student handbook and mentor handbook.
Yeah.
This, and I don't have a question, just another comment. This presentation is daunting and overwhelming, but in a good way, because these are things that I've recognized that we needed for a while, and it's just the ball is rolling very slowly, but it is rolling, and this is going to be of great help to us, I think.
So both the presentation and the workbook have now been shared with Nicole Shassow, and it will be going out as part of her newsletter to teams. And I also sent it over to Scott Davis, who might be able to post it as well, in conjunction with some of the other materials for all of this. Yes, we know that it's overwhelming, but also consider us a resource. I mean, both myself and Elise, we have lived through a lot of what we have put into all of this work, and we'd love to hear from other people as you're working through it yourself.
Yeah, the biggest part of this work that I started with happened during COVID, when I had to take a step back from my team to go help with my mom. And so I got that, a little bit of that overview. I got to step back, and as many of us did during COVID, we stepped back into a whole new realm, right? But I got to step back and see this from a higher level, not being in the weeds of it. When I was in the weeds of it, I will tell you, there was a lot of, oh, why didn't we do this? Why don't we do this? I mean, it was constantly, it was pulling it together when I could step back a little bit. So I understand exactly where you are. I've been deep in the weeds, and I think if I saw this, I might run screaming from the room too. But yeah, decades of experience from Laurie and I on going through all sorts of these experiences.
I ran screaming from the room, but I'm back now.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that.
I can't remember if Laurie actually told the whole story. When I first presented on this in 2020, her screen went dark, and it was like, oh, I wonder why she turned off her camera. As I continue presenting, and she said later she had to turn off her camera because she just couldn't handle it anymore. We modified the process and how we approach some of it, because it is a little bit more of a generalist approach, because we really focused on the process and less on the stuff, because your stuff is particular to your team. And so we really tried to focus more on the process. Dave, do you have a question? I see you turn your camera on.
More just thank you, because actually it's been on top of mind for me for the past year of needing to build this, but now this is giving me a better foundation to work off of.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah, let us know if you find something that we can add to the workbook, because that would just be awesome.
Yeah. You guys find something in your process, you're like, oh, you guys totally missed this.
I have a question. I have a question about security. So I have a to-do list, and we've actually purchased a tool, and I forgot what it is, to do a password manager that we can share with up to 10 people for our team. But the reason why we purchased this particular one is because they had an online two-factor authentication code.
Okay.
And so with the way passwords are working today, pretty much everything you have to log into has 2FA. And if only one of your mentors has the 2FA app tied to their phone, then that doesn't solve any problems at all. So it was sent to me by a nonprofit attorney saying, hey, we use this one for our nonprofits because then you can do the two-factor in the web as well. Do you have any advice around that? I think, having a password manager with shared with multiple logins, so everybody can have their own login and you can reject access and all that stuff is great. This is the first time I'd ever heard about having a web-based 2FA code.
I would love to know what application that is. I'd love to include it to let me know. I can
find that before we get off the call here. Also,
I have a little trick. I use with Gmail. So I work with a lot of nonprofits, right? And particularly with our team account, right? You have a team account. You have often the case is you have a free Gmail account, right? Lots of teams do it because we're all on a shoestring budget. Nothing to be ashamed about. We have one because we're a community-based team. We cannot use our 501c for this because we have an umbrellaed 501c3, which is a bit of a challenge in a very complex 501c3 situation because we're with the 4-H in the state of Florida. Sorry, I know that's a lot of complications. Anyway, what we do is have an email address for one mentor and the phone number for another mentor because you have two options for authentication, right? And so if that way you do have two people who can access, they can either use their phone number or the other person can use the email address. So improves a little bit of that capability and we do the same thing with the team leads account because again, we have it as a Gmail. We do the same thing with the team leads account because team lead 1 and 2, they use one of each. So if something happens, they can make sure they can get in. Just a little trick to get around the.
I have another email trick for 2FA as well, is if your 2FA system will let you email me a code. We have a generic email account set up for that. But because our students also need to have those codes, we have that automatically post a message to Slack so that all of our leaders, all of our students who are part of the leadership group, it just pops right into Slack and they can, and then the nice thing about that is that in Slack, when Afomia or Nicole are requesting our verify your account for MailChimp to do our weekly emails out to parents and students, they can respond saying that was me. So that no one has to worry about who requested this code. Our students or our other mentors can say, I did that. That was me. I had to get into the MailChimp.
See, that's a great example of trust and accountability, right? You trust your students or transparency. You trust your students to do it. And it keeps your workflow going, right? So wherever you can do that, that can be very helpful for creating a trusted environment as well as continuing your workflow.
One of the other tricks I've done for that as well, although it doesn't quite work because we have the not-for-profit workspace for Gmail for the team, is you can do a Google Voice. The Google Voice, the text can go to, you can set up a rule within that to forward it out to a distribution list. Another way I've cheated it, but with the non-for-profit Google Workspace, it doesn't include Google Voice with it. At least not that I found for free. So
we all have to have workarounds, right? We're all trying to get by on what we can manage. Really helps to have those little tips from other teams. Anyone else? All right. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Laurie or I. We're happy to talk to you. If there's students on here who have questions, please make sure to include an adult mentor or parent on that email.
I will put the link I do have the PowerPoint, so I will put that in the show notes for both YouTube and Spotify, which I assume those show notes go to Amazon Music and every place else the podcast goes. So that'll be there. I did think of one more thing though before we hop off the call here. So all of your presentation is about team continuity, and I think everyone here agrees. We certainly agree. Nightcrawler started this "What's on the Wiki" thing as a way to force us to document some of our processes, and some of that stuff will be continuity stuff, and it'll help our future leaders to look back and see what roles have we had in the past, or to look at things like tonight where Fomia said, hey, you're going to be asked students are going to be asked to evaluate you on these things.
Love that.
You should know that now. So that's 6 months from now when you're asked, when you go through that interview process, you're not surprised, or you wouldn't need to be surprised if you read the wiki. But something else that we're trying to do with our wiki, and this has sort of been part of my goal, and Fomi and I have talked a lot about this for the team, is that I'm so tired of making the same list on the whiteboard every year for what do we got to pack for the picnic, or what do we have to take for the middle school demo. It's the same thing every year, but since you only do it once a year, it'll take you longer to go find it in the Google Drive of all the packing lists that could be out there than it will be to just make the list on the whiteboard. And so one of the things that we have on the wiki right now is the pit packing list for both the full pit and a partial pit. And 2 days ago, when we were packing for Mini, our mentor who put that packing list together didn't go try to find Google Drive from his phone. He went to the wiki, he pulled it up, and we made sure everything was packed.
Nice.
And the other thing that I think we've sort of come to terms with is that a lot of organizations, and this is, robotics teams are a whole different animal than like me and my business and how I run my business, but things really don't need to be secret. And so the idea that, well, do we really want to put that up on the wiki or not on the wiki? I mean, if it's not a password and it's not a phone
it's
number,
not personal student information.
Does it really matter? And in the end, if it ends up helping another team, saying, oh, we never even thought about bringing this to a demo. Why don't we bring these things to a demo? This is a really good idea. I mean, even if you put up something that you think is really stupid, no one's going to care what we pack for the picnic. It turns out that other people might say, hey, we're going to host a picnic for our partner team in the next town over. Let's just go start with this list in terms of what we want to bring. And so we've sort of decided we're just going to share as much as we can find to share. Even like we have up on our wiki how to crop photos for the website, because every year we have to remember what tool are we using again to crop these photos and how are we doing that. It's just up there. Now, will another team ever care how Nightcrawler crops their photos? Maybe not. But
that's why I'm a part of the first. Yeah, that's why I'm a part of the first mentor conference, because I do believe as much as we can share with each other, and that is one of the ethos of that group is sharing with each other. One of the things we use for those packing lists is we laminate them. And when our team lead needs to assign somebody to go put together the demo, make sure the demo box is prepared, because we used to always be missing the laptop charger or the driver station or whatever. She's like, here's the list. Now that's one of those things she does that is not go find this, but they can grab a whiteboard erase or whiteboard marker and just go make sure they check everything off. So.
And the last piece of information I wanted to bring up before we got off the call here is because we've started this initiative, I've had conversations with other teams about what they've done. And one of the things I think is maybe a trap. I mean, I don't want to evaluate good or bad per se, but there's always this inclination to say, Google Docs is just such a mess. We should use a professional tool to build a knowledge base, one that's fully searchable and is made to do exactly what we want to do. And then it turns out that everybody who wants to have access to it has to have a separate login. And I think that's one thing that you got to keep in mind very early when you start running down the idea of using a professional tool, even if you can get it for free, is that who has access to it, and how do you get all your new students access to it? And eventually are people just going to stop looking at it because it's too hard to get into the tool? Again, it comes down to process. So I don't want to evaluate good or bad. I just want to encourage people.
And what's the learning curve on it, right? What's the learning curve on creating things with new tools? Sometimes it is just simpler to go with, or it's so much more effective to go with something simple. Yeah. Keep it simple, right?
Yeah, this has come up in conversation a lot recently, actually. This past summer, I was working with a captain of Stampede, the team Stampede, and she was talking about how this past summer they went through and documented so many things on Confluence, which I think is like very widely used in like the business space. I know I had to use it for work, but they talked about how it became really frustrating for them to go into the season and watch people not want to use all the documentation they made because it was so difficult to get yourself registered and navigate the platform. So it definitely is a learning curve, but it also, I think that's an example of one of the traps Scott was talking about being unsure how people will receive different platforms. So sometimes simple is really better.
And you want to prepare the students for possible work tools, right? There's an argument for that of, oh, but this will, I love Canva. Canva is a great tool, right? A little bit of a challenge sometimes with the whole sharing thing. I have to use it for work and for regionals and for, I'm constantly working with different people with it, but it is a great tool, and it's a functional tool for being able to take into the workplace as well. So of course we want to introduce our students to new tools that are going to be relevant as they move forward into workspaces. But again, like you said, where's the payoff of accessibility to something?
Yeah, that's a good point. It definitely shouldn't be dismissed, but I guess it is kind of hard to know what the initial reception would be. And like they didn't plan ahead to have like a training session or maybe a full team discussion about what they're using going forward. So maybe that would be like an adjustment that they can make.
Yeah, having that team having those discussions with your team to make sure they have buy-in for what are we adopting as the best choice to move forward in. Great stuff.
Any last minute questions? We still have a little time left, but I'm happy to end a little early. I mean, we're not that early. It's 8:21 on my clock. Any other kind of comments or questions from the folks in the crowd? Oh, Fomia, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I was thinking about this question earlier because we went through the wiki for leadership roles. I know our team we don't really have like a set list of. We have our set roles, for example, the team captain roles and the sub-team captains, but we have these things called leads. So like we have a CAD lead right now, a website lead. I used to be the autonomous lead. And so our mentors are really good at creating space through like the interview process for people who have maybe a specific focus or a specific skill that they could be a leader in. But sometimes it's challenging. I know, especially we talked about it this past summer because a lot of leadership roles changed. There was a lot of seniors that graduated, and it's going to happen again this year. And I was thinking about, like, you talked about documenting what leadership roles require, what the skills are, what the responsibilities are. But maybe do you have any advice for balancing that with giving people space to kind of fit the role to what their skills are? Because that's also something that comes out of, very strict documentation of what roles should include. People might not feel like they can flex the role to what they think they could bring to the team. Does that make sense? Like having...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you
Yeah.
can correct me if I'm wrong here. One of the challenges I see more often in this space is the business lead type of positions. I think a lot, from my experience, students don't have the same confidence they seem to have with the robot. And I'm not sure they do seem to gain confidence with that robot very, very quickly. And I could be wrong here. I mean, that could still be a bit of the challenge, but I think you can use this on both sides of that. Is, again, yes, that what are the skills that are useful for this particular role, but also being clear about what that looks like. For example, sometimes students will get like, oh, I can't do the website or I can't do the imagery with the social media and such. But like you said, everybody has different experiences and different skills. Somebody might be really good at writing. And so if they are the website lead and they're only really good at writing, but they're not really good at the more graphics part and the way something looks or some other aspect, it's about building your team, right? Like they're the lead. So it's not about being able to do everything really, really well. It's about remembering that you do have something that you can contribute. Those strategy kids often get overlooked in the business side of it. But oh my gosh, some of my strategy kids were the best ones on figuring out social media strategy, even strategy for awards, right? So they do have skills, and how that can transfer over that cross line between robot and business, and building that confidence in them that you don't have to understand every aspect of it. We'll have somebody walking alongside you.
There's another thought too, Aphomia, is write your own role. You can provide a basic template for your students on your team that they have to include certain aspects, like let's say the time commitment would be for whatever the role is, let's say, but then they can bring it's like write your own role. If you could create your own role, but within the guidelines and what the team can possibly offer them. So if it opens up a lot of possibilities, because you're going to hear from a lot more students, because they're going to Elise's point, they're not going to be that website lead, but they're going to be creating something that's going to contribute significantly to the team. They just don't know that yet. So create that space for them to create that role.
Yeah, I really like that. When a lot of our leadership roles changed this past summer, we actually sat down, we had a discussion per sub team, and then I had a talk with Scott and my other co-captain about what we wanted our roles to mean and to be, especially because we've had situations with co-captains in the past of roles being unclear or responsibilities being unclear. But I almost think that we should probably have that discussion again, like before kickoff or also during the build season, because I think that's when a lot of times people find what brings them the most excitement on the team, especially for our younger members. Like, where do they think they could step up and lead? Like, I didn't know I was going to get into autonomous when I came onto my first year of the team. I didn't even know what that was. So that kind of goes through the build season, and people kind of grow and change. And I think it's important to give people space to do that, but also make it clear what like requirements are, what expectations are for each role, so things get done.
And teams grow and change, right? So an initiative you've worked on for years and years with your team, and there's that pressure, oh, we have to continue, we have to grow this initiative, grow this. If the team's no longer excited about it, let it go. Put their energy towards something they are excited about, right? It's okay to let things go that are no longer something your team is passionate about. But what are they passionate about? And having those conversations and that recommitment on things that you want to keep doing can be helpful. Also, you should always be training your replacement. Students should, and mentors should always be training their replacement throughout the whole season. Seniors especially. Ooh, so hard when you have a hard hit of a big senior class, and 2 years in a row. Oh, that's painful.
I found the name of the password manager. It is called Dashlane.
I've heard of that.
Okay. I can't give you any testimonial on it because we haven't really even started using it. I paid for it, and we have the 10 accounts plan. But it was recommended to me by a nonprofit attorney, so I was like, I don't even have to think about it. I'm just going to buy it. We'll start using it.
Maybe I'll check back in with you towards the end of the season.
It's probably going to be like a winter break project to start moving that type of stuff in there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and take it slow, and don't, right? Don't worry about getting every one of them in there perfectly. Maybe test a few.
That's a good, the perfectness is a great comment, because with us trying to get a new article out on the wiki every week, we're publishing things that are incomplete, and that's okay.
Yep.
Right. Because something that's incomplete is better than something that's not. And honestly, I really would like our students and our other mentors to look at that and say, hey, you were missing a bunch here, or this isn't worded very well. Fantastic. It's a wiki. Anybody can go update it. Please do. Right. And
perfect is the enemy of good.
Right.
If it's going to be perfect, it's never going to get done.
So I think that's a good takeaway here too, is that perfect should not be the goal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at 8:30. Any last going once, going twice? Anyone else have any last minute comments or questions?
Thank you so much, Scott and Aphomia. A real pleasure being with you on this, whatever you're going to call it, the FRC Roundtable. There we go. Covers all the platforms, right? But thank you so much for inviting us in and letting us have this opportunity to share what we've worked so hard to learn.
Elise and Laurie, thank you. We really appreciate it. A big round of applause, everyone. Throw up your virtual claps on the screen. That's awesome. Thanks so much. And for everyone who's listening, please join us in session. We are not going to have a roundtable the Sunday after Thanksgiving. We're going to take a break. So we'll be back in December. And then I think we have 3 roundtables in December. And then our next roundtable will be the Sunday after kickoff. So please join us again in 2 weeks, and we will see you all then. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
All right.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.